Hi everyone, welcome to today's Social Studies lesson. Our topic is mapping and locating places in the environment. Before we begin, here's what we'll be learning in today's lesson. First, we will look at map basics, what maps are and what we mean by scale. Then, we will explore the types of maps we use for different purposes. Next, we will see who uses maps and how different people benefit from them in real life. After that, we will study the components of a map, things like the north arrow, map key, and symbols. Then, we will try creating our own map, like sketching one of our school compound. Finally, we will practice finding landmarks, how to describe where important places are in our community. By the end of this lesson, you'll understand how maps help us find our way, plan, and explore the world around us. Here's a question. How do you find your way to a new place if you've never been there before? Do you ask someone for directions? Maybe use Google Maps? People all over the world use something special to find places and understand their surroundings. That's right, maps. Maps help us see where things are, how far they are from each other, and what an area looks like from above. Without maps, traveling or exploring new places would be really confusing, right? Let's begin with the basics. A map is a drawing or picture that shows us where places are located. It helps us find our way to new places, see distances between towns, and understand our environment better. Think of it like this. If you could fly like a bird and look down from the sky, the view you'd see is what a map shows. Now, every map also has something called a scale. The scale shows the relationship between the distance on the map and the real distance on the ground. For example, 1 centimeter on the map might represent 100 meters in real life. So, if 2 points on the map are 3 centimeters apart, in reality, they are about 300 meters away. Why do we need that? Because if we try to draw a real road in its full size on paper, the map would be as long as the road itself. That wouldn't fit anywhere, right? So, scale helps us shrink large areas onto small paper while keeping distances accurate. It's what makes a map practical for planning and navigation. Let's look at the different types of maps we use. There are 3 main types you should remember: street maps, landscape maps, and national maps. We'll talk about each one in detail. First, street maps. These maps show the roads, streets, and buildings in cities and towns. They help us move around easily, find important places, and see how roads are connected. For example, when a delivery rider is finding your school or home, they use a street map, sometimes through apps like Google Maps. It shows landmarks, public transport routes, and even neighborhoods. Next, landscape maps. These are also called physical or topographic maps. They show the natural features of the earth, like mountains, rivers, valleys, and oceans. Some of these maps even use contour lines to show how high or low an area is. People who study the environment or love hiking and exploration use these maps to understand the shape of the land. Finally, national maps. These maps show an entire country. They display the borders, the regions, and the major cities. For example, a national map of Ghana shows all 16 regions, our neighboring countries like Côte d'Ivoire and Togo, and important features such as Lake Volta. National maps help us understand how the country is divided and where everything is located. So, remember, street maps help us move within towns and cities, landscape maps show nature, and national maps represent the whole country. Now that we know the types of maps, let's talk about why maps are important and who actually uses them. You might think maps are only for geographers or people who travel a lot, but that's not true at all. Maps are useful to so many different people in their work and daily lives. Let's look at a few examples. First, airline managers. They use maps to plan flight routes and track weather patterns across regions. Before any plane takes off, managers and pilots study maps carefully to know the safest path through the sky. Next, fisherfolk. Our fisherfolk depend on maps and charts to find the best fishing locations and navigate safely on water. These maps show things like water depth, current, and safe routes at sea. Then, farmers. Farmers also use maps to plan how to water their crops, where to grow certain plants, and how to manage their farmland. With a good map, they can see which parts of their land are flat, sloped, or near water bodies. And finally, families who move to new areas. When a family moves to a new town or city, maps help them find important places like schools, hospitals, and markets. Even on your phone, when you search for directions to a shop or friend's house, you are using a map. So you see, from pilots to fishermen, from farmers to families, everyone uses maps in one way or another to plan, travel, and understand their surroundings. Now that we know why maps are important, let's learn about the parts of a map, what we call the components of a map. Every good map must have certain features that make it complete and easy to read. Let's go through them one by one. First, the north arrow. The north arrow shows direction. It helps us know which way is north, south, east, and west. When you see a map, always look for the arrow marked N. That arrow points to the north. Once you know north, you can easily find all the other directions. Second, the scale. Remember we spoke about scale earlier? It tells us the relationship between distance on the map and real distance on the ground. Without a scale, you wouldn't know how far one place is from another. Third, the map key, also called the legend. This is like the map's dictionary. It explains the symbols, colors, and patterns used on the map. For example, a blue line might mean a river, a red cross could mean a hospital, and a black line might show a road. The legend helps you understand what each of those symbols stands for. And finally, the map symbols. Symbols are the small drawings, shapes, and colors you see on the map itself. They represent real things: roads, rivers, schools, markets, even factories. Because we can't draw real buildings and trees on paper, we use symbols instead. So, to read any map correctly, look for these 4 things: the north arrow, the scale, the map key, and the symbols. Once you understand this, reading any map becomes simple and fun. Let's take a closer look at 2 parts of a map that many students mix up: the map legend and the map symbols. They work together, but they are not the same thing. Map symbols are the small shapes, lines, and colors you see on the map itself. They represent real things like roads, rivers, towns, or schools. For example, a thin blue line might stand for a river, a black square might mean a building, and a red cross could show a hospital. But how do you know what each symbol means? That's where the map legend, also called the map key, comes in. The legend is like a dictionary for the map. It's usually found at the bottom or the side of the map, and it explains every symbol one by one. So if you see a symbol you don't understand, just check the legend. It will tell you exactly what it represents. Let's make it simple. Symbols are what you see on the map. The legend explains what those symbols mean. So, the next time you look at a map, remember, the legend helps you read the map correctly, just like a dictionary helps you understand new words. Now that we understand symbols and the map legend, let's learn about the two main kinds of features that appear on most maps: physical features and human features. First, physical map features. These are the natural parts of the earth, things created by nature, not by people. Examples include rivers and streams, mountains and hills, forests and valleys, deserts and oceans. When you look at a physical map, you are seeing how the land truly looks, where it is flat, high, wet, or dry. So whenever you see blue for water or brown for mountains, remember, those are physical features. Next, human map features. These are the features made or built by people. They show how humans live, work, and change their environment. Examples are roads and bridges, settlements and villages, plantations and farms. If you see a map showing schools, hospitals, or factories, those are all human features. So the difference is simple. Physical features come from nature, and human features come from people. Now let's learn how to locate landmarks on a map. A landmark is an object or feature that helps us recognize a place easily. It could be a tall building, a statue, a bridge, or even a school or market that everyone knows. Landmarks make it easier to describe where places are. For example, instead of saying, "My house is near the junction," you could say, "My house is behind a Methodist church." That church becomes the landmark. When we locate landmarks on a map, we look at their position and direction in relation to another known place. We can also use distance to describe how far they are apart. Let's take an example. The bank is 500 meters north of the junior high school. Here, 500 meters tells us the distance, and north tells us the direction. So when you are describing landmarks, always think about two things: how far and which direction. That's how we locate and describe places accurately. Landmarks can be anything: the bank, the market, the clinic, the post office, the library, or even the police station. These help us move around, give directions, and understand our community better. Now it's time to put everything we've learned into practice. Your task is to create a detailed map of your school compound. This activity will help you practice everything, from using symbols to adding a skill and a map key. Here's what your map should include: the boundary of the school campus, all the main buildings like classrooms, the office, library, and canteen, a clear north arrow to show direction, a map key or legend to explain your symbols, a title for your map, and of course, a scale so we know real distances. Alright everyone, let's quickly go over what we've learned today. We started by talking about maps, drawings that help us see where things are, how to get there, and what an area looks like from above. We learned that every map has a scale, which shows the relationship between the distance on the map and the real distance on the ground. We also discovered that there are 3 main types of maps: street maps, which help us move around towns and cities; landscape maps, which show natural features like mountains and rivers; and national maps, which represent entire countries. Then we looked at why maps are important, how people like airline managers, farmers, fisherfolk, and families all use maps for different purposes. We went on to study the components of a map: the north arrow, scale, map key, and symbols, and we learned how to read them correctly. We also discussed the difference between map symbols and the map legend. Remember, symbols are what you see on the map, and the legend explains what they mean. Then we explored physical and human features. Physical features come from nature, like rivers and mountains, and human features are made by people, like roads, buildings, and farms. We also learned how to locate landmarks by using direction and distance. For example, the bank is 500 meters north of the school. So, what's the big idea? Maps help us understand and navigate our world. They show us where we are going, and how people and the environment connect. That brings us to the end of our lesson on mapping and locating places in the environment. If you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel.